I wanted to take a quick video of this to show that it does work and will work. Those are my two lucets that I stuck in the holes that held the warping sticks, and that's a bamboo back beam. It's not very heavy. It's not as heavy as the 1/2-inch cherry dowels, but that will work. So this may be my new portable way of warping backstrap looms. I want to show you something about backstrap weaving in practice. This is one of the pieces that I had started that was in a video the other day. And this is one of the ones that I had set up for rags. I think this one is actually going to be a rug for the dog because of two reasons. She's the only one in bare feet, and COVID-19 is out and about. So if she has a rug that she walks on all the time, hopefully, you know, anything on her feet will go to the rug. But also, I just wanted to make something pretty instead of plain white. But two things I want to say. You see, I have a string on there for the belt, and that's too long. This is one of the looms that I had stuck in one of my Samsonite boxes as an emergency loom, and I had just put a string belt on there, and I will show you in a moment why that's too long. You need everything to fit snugly up against your stomach. The other thing I wanted to show you is that I'm almost at the end, and I would keep weaving till about here. I would cut the warp here, and the weaving, let's say the weaving is where the sticks are. I cut the warp there. I tie all of these warp threads into knots at the end, like 3 strands together into a knot. And that's how you add the fringe. I then unroll it and do the same thing to the other end, tying it in knots. Now, when people backstrap weave, what you have to do is roll up the warp, except for the Harrisville Designs belt loom. You have to roll up the warp and hold all of that in place while you keep weaving. Otherwise, you would need 6-foot-long arms. Now, for years, what I've been doing is taking the belt and wrapping it around the 2 dowels in different ways to get the belt to hold the dowels in place, and it drives me crazy. So I have found a simple way to do this, and you can think of making your warp or your woven item a package. What you're doing is you're making a package. So I have some crocheted string. Very easy. You could use any kind of string, but crocheted string is stretchy. So see how the whole piece unrolls? And then I need to roll it up to be able to work right here. So what you do on the bottom side, you take a string of crocheted thread, like you're wrapping up a package, and the thread string goes in between the two dowels, and with 2 hands I can just pull this on there. So in between the 2 dowels, in between the 2 dowels, and what that does is prevent it from going any further. It can get frustrating when you're working to all of a sudden have the whole thing unroll in front of you. So that's one thing, and then I'll show you how this particular belt is just too long. I'm going to step into this instead of This is why the belts with clips are so much easier, because you don't have to step into them or pull them over your head. You can just clip them around your waist. Okay, so I have this on my waist, but see how far out this is? This is like 6 inches away from me, and it really should be at least here. It just, even if you have long arms, it's just easier to work it. And then when you're done for the day, done weaving for the day, you can put your shuttle like that up against your heddle, roll it all up, and put it in a bag. Now, this is an important difference about string heddles on backstrap looms. I posted kind of a long video yesterday about how to set up a backstrap loom with string heddles and all the different things you might be thinking about as you do that. And you saw that I had this skinny little warp of 22 warp threads at 11 heddles on a 3-foot loom. And now you see that it has a rigid heddle on it, a clay heddle. Now, I'll tell you why. First of all, I did do just a little bit of weaving. There are the heddles that I removed. This is why, and this is what you need to know about string heddles. This is about 1.5 inches of weaving with string heddles, and this is why string heddles are used to make very fine fabric. So I have 22 warp threads there. I was using, it's a worsted weight wool blend yarn, and basically I was getting shoelaces. That's about how thick it is. It worked. I could have made shoelaces. It worked fine. But I decided to go to a rigid heddle for 2 reasons. I need to make some straps, but also this is an excellent way to point out to you the difference you need to be aware of between using a rigid heddle or string heddles. Technically, 22 warps across should be 22 warps across. Now, with string heddles, you're setting your gauge and your number of warp threads according to how many per inch you want. So if you get 360 warp threads on a 3-foot dowel with 10 warp threads per inch, you're going to get a very fine, closely woven fabric. When you use a rigid heddle, such as this one, this has 25 holes in it, so 3 of them are empty because I took the same 22 warp threads and I'm getting a 4-inch band, or 3.5, maybe 3. The reason that is because the structure, the physical structure of a rigid heddle keeps those warp threads separated by however many dents the heddle is. So when you switch from string heddles to a rigid heddle, you're taking your pencil marks off your back beam. You're taking away your decision of how many warps per inch you want, and you're giving that decision to the heddle. I don't know how many this is. It's like 4 inches wide and it has 25 holes. So now this heddle is deciding the width of my fabric. And it's something you really need to be aware of, because string heddles are wonderful to work with, and they work wonderfully on the ankle and the pipe loom. But when it comes to backstrap weaving, there is no structure to keep the warps separate. And so the other thing you have to look for, these are the heddles that were on there, and a couple of my heddles had the knot that makes it a heddle at the bottom, and that was kind of getting in the way. So when you're putting your string heddles on a loom, you want to try and get all the knots to the top so that their little strand ends don't get involved with the warp threads. So there is more of, that's the back, more of what you need to know about what choices you have when you're using a backstrap loom. One other thing to point out about my shoelaces. I was planning on making shoelaces for my white sneakers, and I figured 12 feet of shoelaces, I'd have shoelaces for a while. If I had been doing anything else, if I was doing this kind of a band project from the beginning, I did just say that there's no structure with backstrap weaving and string heddles. The structure is how many warps per inch. So if I had started with the idea of making a band instead of making shoelaces, and I had 22 heddles, I probably would have been doing something with 11 warps per inch, and at that point, that's when the tape comes in. So I would have done everything the same way, except I would have... Okay, this is the aggressive turkey. Get out of here! Are you crazy? This is the aggressive turkey. She wants my yard. Can you believe it? She just came right up to my shoulder while I'm talking. I would have spread the warp out, look at her, to be 11 warps per inch, and I would have taped it. I'm not after your babies. Look at how big they're getting. I am so lucky she didn't just attack me. I had no idea she was next to me until she was right at my shoulder. So I'm sorry for the interruption. Can you believe it? She wanted to see what I was doing. She looked at the loom and then she left. Look at how big they are. And there are the others further away over at that other house. These are all the hens that fight. I'm sorry. So I would have moved the warp threads to 11 per inch, and then I would have placed tape down, especially when I only have 22 warps. And that is how you make your structure. That's why when you're Navajo weaving or your backstrap loom weaving with like 360 warps, that fills the whole loom. But when you're doing something, you know, like a band where you have 22 warps, it helps to just tape them in place.